dudes, Surfer Ray Odyssey here. All I have to say is, give me back my pro wrestling, dudes. Hang loose.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
For those who don't know, now you know, baby. This is Hot Rod Biggs, Jared, Jimmy Street. We're going to take them to the limit one more time, baby, right here on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one more time to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast, and it is me, your host, Jimmy Street, here as always. And guys, I hope y'all are having an awesome day out there. Thank you so much for dropping by and checking out what we've got going on. And today, guys, man, this is a good one. I'm serious. I cannot wait to talk to this gentleman. Today, we bring you the one and only Surfer Ray Odyssey, Northeast Indies, ECW, and especially Memphis. Anyway, can't wait to get to Ray. And of course, Ray is here today because we're promoting a Captain's Corner Hidden Treasures virtual signing next Thursday. So today is Thursday the 20th, or whenever you listen to it, the very next Thursday on August 27th, on the Captain's Corner Facebook. You guys know Captain's Corner. We've talked about them a lot over the years. Check out his Facebook and you'll be able to watch this virtual signing and get you an autograph from a very rare signing opportunity of Surfer Ray Odyssey. So y'all check that out. Don't miss it. August 27th. You'll hear more about it throughout the show. Of course, to continue on, guys, last episode we had the main man himself, Joe Gomez. Joe is just the man. He really is. What a kind, unique soul that lived every bit of his dream. And man, Joe's the best. Thank you, Joe. We're still going to come down and see you in Tampa sometime, brother. So keep the fires warm, homie. Couple more things, guys. Pahi USA, you know, we've been talking about it for weeks now. The Demon Del Torborg, friend of the show, he has his own shoe company, and they are called Pahi, and they're great for balance. So if you have a loved one or yourself who's having issues with balance, these shoes are for you. Go to pahiusa.com and use code BBB10 for 10% off your purchase. Trust me, these are totally worth it. Great shoes. I have a pair, got a pair for my mom. I'll probably be getting more pairs very soon, but just check them out. pahiusa.com, I promise. All right, y'all, that is all I have for the open today. Sheik and Quinton are joining me on the other side. Welcome to episode 135 with Surfer Ray Odyssey. All right, we are back, and guys, we have an extra special guest today. This has been one that we've been really looking forward to. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Surfer Ray Odyssey. How are you, sir?
Dude, Jimmy, good to hear from you. Hey, thanks for calling for me. And more importantly, thanks for remembering me, because whenever someone brings up the name Surfer Ray Odyssey, I kind of get that, yeah, I think I remember him. So, yeah, I may not have been a household name, but I got a whole lot of stories for you with everybody else. And I also know that Sheik and Quinton are there. How you doing, fellas?
Doing great, man.
Doing awesome.
Yeah. The fellas are here with Surfer Ray. Hey, Surfer, you're here. The main reason you are here, though, is to promote an upcoming signing with our buddy Captain's Corner. It's his Hidden Treasures virtual signing, August 27th on Facebook. I'm sure you're excited about that. Nick's a great guy.
Oh, it is great. And I just met Nick a couple weeks ago. He gave me a call. He actually, we met through a mutual friend, Tom Brandy. And Tom's one of the few guys that I still stay in touch with over the years. All my wrestling friends I've kind of either lost touch with or unfortunately they passed on. But it really, Tom's one of the few guys left. There's King Kalu I still talk with. Every once in a while I'll text with Tommy Dreamer or Bubba Ray. But yeah, they're really, Brandy's the only one that I still really stay in touch with. So thanks, Tom. Thanks for dropping my name to Nick, because I said I don't do these things. So when he kind of explained what it was all about, I said, yeah, I think that'd be cool for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tom is a great guy. I've been able to interview him before, and what a great guy. Some of the listeners may have heard that back on the Austin Idol Power Hour podcast. So anyway, Tom is a great guy. You are correct. And we always kick it to the Sheik for his very first question. So Sheik, take it away.
All right, Ray. So this is going to introduce the audience and us to you a little bit, and the fact of maybe who influenced you, who you like to work with, or who you just enjoyed being around in the business. If you had a Mount Rushmore, let's say 4 to 5 names in the business, who would those names be?
You mean of guys that I respect that I've worked with, or just guys that like my top 4 wrestlers? I mean, which way you want to go?
However you want it, man. However you want it.
Okay, I'll tell you. All right, here's a good one for my top. You know what? It's not going to be anybody else's Mount Rushmore.
That's
I would
perfect.
say
Yeah.
my Mount Rushmore is Larry Sharp, because I trained at the Monster Factory.
Okay.
Charlie Fulton, and I'm sure, I mean, again, not a household name, but Charlie was one of the, the workers back in the day that, was such a good talent and everything. And, and just, he taught me the ins and out of the business. It was because of him, really, I got my start, because when I went, like I said, I went to Puerto Rico, I went to Memphis, and Charlie always said, listen, if you get a chance, just drop my name. Tell him, Charlie, because usually you get those same looks. You see I was 19 when I got in, but really 20 years old. I went to Memphis when I was 20, and Puerto Rico, I think I was either 19 or 20. But, they look at you, same look at these, see the veterans, and I look you down, who's this kid there? And then as soon as I said, hey, listen, Charlie Fulton trained me, and he told me to, say hi or whatever. And right away, guys' eyes their faces would totally change. Like, wait a minute, old Charlie trained you? Oh, hell,
Yeah.
son, you must be all right. Actually, Robert Fuller told me to say, when I went into Memphis, same thing. Hell, son, you must be all right if old Charlie trained you. So I'd say I put them 2. I'm going to put Ted Petty and Tom Brandy, my next 2, only because those were the 2 guys who were most influential on getting me work. And again, both of these guys were baby faces back in the 80s. We all are kind of from the same area. I grew up in South Jersey. Tom was in Pennsylvania. Ted Petty was Rocco Rock. I'm sure everyone knows there.
Yeah.
Ted Petty was, and then Cheetah Kid. He was like Central Jersey. But I started working some of the indies there, and these 2 guys, like, unselfishly would, say, hey, listen, Ray, look like you can work. Give me some pictures. I'll see if I can, get you some work somewhere. And for another baby face to go ahead and do stuff like that, Tom was the one that got me into the ICW and IWCCW. He talked to Mary for me. And I said, and Teddy was the one really that kind of started getting me bookings around. I'm trying to think some of the big names, indie guys back then were like Rob Russin, Bob Raskin, I think, ran a lot of stuff like in New York and North Jersey. So, I mean, it was really a big help to have somebody as good as Teddy was to, vouch for me and say, did this guy can work? So that, I'm going to tell you, that's nobody else's Mount Rushmore but mine. But I tell you, that is my Mount Rushmore of my wrestling career.
Hey, and that's what we're looking for. We want. I like different, so that's great that you have that, and that tells people a lot about you. So good list.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, and just one other thing with Charlie, and both Charlie and Larry have passed on, but tell you couldn't have asked for someone. I mean, Charlie, again, he was the main trainer at the Monster Factory, so I mean, I learned the moves from him. But more importantly, afterwards, we would go sit at this little corner bar afterwards training, and I'd sit on a stool and just listen to him talk for hours, and just have him sit me at the tree of learning and tell me how you act around people, how you do what you do in the locker room. And it's kind of, I don't know if it's a lost art. I don't know if it's an art that most people don't know, especially when they get into business. You have to really learn to handle yourself the correct way when you walk into a locker room, especially when no one knows who you are. So for Charlie like I said, I learned a lot from him in the ring, but I learned more about the wrestling business on the out of the ring stuff, which I think truthfully is more important, because let's face it, there have been a ton of guys that had way more talent than me. I used to say I think literally I might have had 15 moves I did, and punch, kick, and chop were 3 of them. So it's not like I had a big arsenal of moves, but what I did, I learned to do right and just acted right. And I kind of learned the psychology of the business from him. And I also learned how to do a pretty good promo from Larry Sharp, because he was one of the most polarizing guys you ever meet. Whereas everyone loved Charlie, Larry was a guy that either you loved him or you hated him, because he could be obnoxious and he could be funny and he could be both at the same time. So Larry was always a good guy to learn promos from too. So those 2 guys were huge. It's a shame that the Monster Factory is gone now, because the wrestling business would really misses 2 guys like that.
Amen.
Very good, yeah.
So you already kind of answered this question I had. You said you got started at the Monster Factory. So when you were there training at the Monster Factory, who else was there training at the same time?
I just missed Bam Bam Bigelow by about a month, but it was probably the biggest name that was Raven. Scott Levy was there, and we trained together. We were kind of right at the same time. But yeah, I think he might have started a month before me. Then a little later on, Chris Candido came in. Let's see, Balls Mahoney was there for a little. This was a few years after. The guys that I mainly trained with, though. Tony Stetson. Okay, he was a good hand in like the Pennsylvania, Jersey area in the early days of ECW. I think he had feuds with the one guy, Johnny Hotbody. He was another guy that trained with me. Then there was other guys that were good that never made it. There was a Chris the Edge Evans, who was excellent, probably the best of us all. But he didn't have much of the promo skills, and that's a shame, because it seemed like that's why he didn't get as much work as he should have, because he was better than all of us. Then, of course, we had the ultimate party animal. We had Tony D. Tiger. We had Boy Gone Bad. Oh, man, these are guys that we bring up every once in a while when me, Tom Brandy, and Mike Kalua sit around every once in a while. We have a beer, and we bring these guys up, and we just laugh. Remember these guys? They just kind of squeaked on the indies, and they were characters in themselves.
Good stuff.
I got one quick story with that. Now, I was probably I wasn't there long, maybe a year or two, because with the Monster Factory, I started training in 1987. I went 1 year to college. I went to West Virginia Wesleyan, found that it wasn't for me. I always had that dream of pro wrestling. Actually, I used to get the UWF show on late night, probably why I didn't do well in my studies, because I was up late watching UWF. But they even had a training school there, and I sent some stuff out to there. They actually accepted me and said, come on out, if you want to train, you come out here. But that was out, I believe either Texas or Oklahoma. I can't remember. But I said, you know what? The Monster Factory was literally right around the corner from my house, so that's why I went there. But anyway, who would have known if my career would have taken a different turn if I would have gone out to the UWF school? It could have not even happened at all, because maybe I go out there, they beat the hell out of me, and they send me on my way, because Larry Sharp and Charlie Fulton, as much as you hear some of these horror stories where guys would just get tortured by Ole Anderson or somebody, the Hearts up in Calgary, where Stu would just make guys scream. These guys were total pros. You never had to worry about, whether they're going to take liberties on you. They taught you the right way to do things. Now, if you acted up, they get in there and they might, stretch you a little bit, but it's not nothing to really hurt you, just to teach you, okay, this is what it's like here, okay, But anyway, so a few years later, I had a young Chris Candido. Chris had, I think it was either his uncle or his grandfather. His name was Popeye Richards. He was a WWF guy from long ago, kind of like an enhancement guy, but Larry was good friends with him. So he goes, hey, Ray, you want to roll around the ring with Popeye a little bit? I'm sure, yeah, I'd love to roll around the ring with him. But it was so funny. So we were in an empty, warehouse is what the Monster Factory started in. There's nobody there. And Popeye's acting like it's like he's in front of Madison Square Garden. He's cutting promos on me. He starts biting me, and I'm going, holy shit, this guy, he's going all out for just us. Anyway, so then after I got done with him, he says, you want to roll around with his grandson? This is Chris. And he couldn't have been, I'm thinking like 14 or 15 years old. And I remember just thinking, this guy is great. I mean, I even said, have you trained anywhere? He goes, well, I do something like in the backyard with my buddies. And I'm like, and he goes, and my grandfather's taught me some stuff. But right off the bat, I'm like, I'm trying to think how young Chris, my age difference from Chris. I was probably 20, 21 at the time. So if he was, I don't know, 5 years younger than me, I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up. He was 14, 15 years old. He already could go. So another Monster Factory guy. Oh, and you know what? And Big Bear was there. That was the Godfather. I didn't see him too much. Yeah, he was there for a little bit. He was more into, I think he was like a bouncer and like with nightclubs and stuff like that. And when we went to Larry's, I think it was his third spot. He used to move that Monster Factory all over the place, where anyone in New Jersey know there was a Clementon Mall, which actually was more of a mart, like one of the swap marts or whatever. And Larry had he made one of his Monster Factories. There was a big building. It was indoors and everything, so it wasn't like it was just outside. But I remember he brought in a very young Paul White, and he was Larry's guy for maybe about a month, but and that was fun because right away when and I was always Larry's running buddy, even at 21. He's like, "Come on, Ray, let's go take Paul out and show him around." And so it was a young big show, and we were going to all the places in Paulsboro, New Jersey, because Larry knew exactly where he could get a free beer. He's like, "Oh, Larry, let me introduce you to Ray and my other protege here." And of course, he walked in, all 7 foot whatever he was, and he's already signing autographs. And I remember we're at a VFW, I think, and he goes, "Come on, Ray, let's get out of here." I'm like, "Well, we're going to get Paul." He goes, he can find his own way home, the big superstar," and we ditched him.
Oh my gosh!
To think of it, you think about it, one of the biggest stars that ever walked through WWE, and we ditched him because he was acting kind of like a pompous jerk that was nowhere before,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my funny brush with Paul White.
That's amazing.
And I'll say something real fast. It's not on my stuff, but talk about Charlie Fulton. Yeah, he. That guy worked for a long time. He worked for Goulas back in the 70s. He was teaming with Bobby Joggers as Bobby Main. So yeah, he don't get a lot of credit. The credit he deserves. He was a good hand. So I just throw that in.
When I had that was like Charlie was when I first had my first shot down in Puerto Rico. So I think it was 20. And Bobby Jaggers was actually down there, and he goes, "Listen, Bobby Jaggers is down there. You make sure you mention my name." And I said, I walked in the locker room, of course, some young, especially American guy, half the locker room is speaking Spanish. And I sought him out, and I said, "Hey, nice to meet you. I'm Ray Odyssey. I just know Charlie Fulton trained me." And it was like that. He took me under his wing from that. I think he was tag teaming with a guy named Dan Crawford back then, and they were. I forget what their tag team was, but I'm pretty sure they held the belts. Well, he told them right away, he said, "Well, I want to work with him." So they put us in the ring, but it was funny. I met him that day, and they said, I forget who it was, said, "Listen, don't spend the day out on the beach, get to the arena, whatever." Of course, I'm 20 years old. I got a free trip to Puerto Rico. I'm going out on the beach. So I sat on the beach. I kind of got burned. And when I got in the ring, they were kind of laughing because they could see that already my chest was red. So Crawford, first thing he did was back me up into the corner, and he started laying in chops. He goes, "We told you, stay off the beach." And they just kept chopping me. They ended up taking me out that night. So it was those guys took me out to a couple places in Puerto Rico, just the American guys. So, and Bobby actually got me. I came back again to shoot TV. I worked with Hercules Ayala. They really liked me a lot. In fact, Hercules was even giving me like some spot, not really spots, but okay, come on, come back, come on, start hitting me, which, and he was a monster back then too. And they liked me enough where they wanted to bring me in. So I said, "Oh, that's great. I got a spot. I'm going to go Puerto Rico full time." I came home, and that was right when Bruiser Brody got murdered. And coincidentally, I worked a show for the AWA in North Jersey that Jerry Lawler was on, and I gave him my picture there too. So like a week later, Jerry Jarrett called me and said, I got your picture. Jerry gave you, vouched for you, said you're a good worker if you'd like to come down here. So I was like, let's see, I always wanted to go to Memphis, or I could go back to Puerto Rico where they just killed Bruiser Brody. I think I'm going to Memphis.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt, man. Oh man.
Yeah, and there, when I got there, Frank Morrell, who was the old referee, Charlie actually tugged with Frank Morrell, and I wish I could remember their names. If you guys could hurry up and click it on your computer, it was Charlie Fulton and Frank Morrell were. That's it. Yep. Yes. The Mighty Yankees, was it? Yeah. Yeah. And I said that to him, and right away, it's same thing. Okay. All right. You must be okay. So right away, I got accepted, by the Memphis locker room, same as I got accepted in the Puerto Rican locker room, just because I'm dropping the name Charlie Fulton.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So before you get to Memphis, what were some of the indies that you worked on before Memphis?
It was a lot of the, like I said, I'm from Jersey, the New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. I said, I remember working for, and Ted Petty was like, got me with work with Bob Raskin. There was another guy, Rob Russin, who he ran a lot in North Jersey. Larry Sharp actually ran his own stuff then with his own students. And then that's when he got to be partners with Dennis Carluzzo. And that's when that kind of took off. So I was working for them. And then Tom got me in with the ICW there. And so I was working with the ICW, pretty good. They were starting to use me decent. And that's when I actually told Mario, who I still talk to. That's one few guys I will not talk, but, do the Facebook thing, the private messaging. So and I remember saying to Mario, because they said, okay, we got bookings. It was for the ICW didn't do bad. I mean, for really, I guess they called it like an outlaw promotion or outlaw indie. But, they would run like 10 shows a month, 11 shows, 12 shows a month. And I remember Tommy, who was the referee, that was Mario's cousin. He was in charge of booking, and it was like, hey, kid, we got 10 dates. I go, well, listen, Tommy, I was going to talk to Mario. I got an offer. I'm going to Memphis. So right away, Mario called me, and he goes, Ray, I think that would be a mistake. And he goes, we're going to put the light heavyweight belt on you. I go, well, Mario, really, and I appreciate it, but this is a full-time gig. I said, Memphis was working. We were working 6 days a week then. It was a real territory. That's like one of the last of the few. It was 1988 when I was in Memphis. So I went, and I had heat when I left. They're like, yeah, well, good luck down there. But they were pissed. They were saying, we're going to put this strap on you. And I'm like, oh, I know, but I want to go to Memphis. And so I said, when I worked there, and then long story short, when I ended up, I was in Memphis for maybe 6 months, when I started working the indies again, and Tom goes, why don't you come back to the ICW? I go, I don't know, I think I got heat with Mario. He goes, oh, you're fine, I already talked to Mario. Mario's cool, he'll bring you back. I just had to listen to, kid, I told you so. I'm like, okay, yeah, you told me so. But he really didn't tell me so anything, and I respect Mario, but I really wanted to go to Memphis. That's where, if you went to Memphis, man, that was like, guys make it when they go to Memphis. So I didn't want to play wrestler like a lot of guys do now. I wanted to make $1 million, and I wanted to make it my career. And that's why, like, in my early 30s, I kind of, retired from there, because I saw the carrot of the WWE getting further and further away. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to hang on here. If I'm not going to make $1 million and be a WWE star, I think I'm done. So I had kind of a short career. I wrestled till 2001 was my last year, and then I had a handful of matches before I came back in I think like 2021. Tommy Fierro, who actually was another guy that ran, but I don't think he ran indies as early as that. Like when I first started, they said, and again, I'm talking so much. I go off on tangents.
You're good.
Back in the day, they said it was the ICW. It was like Rob Russin. It was kind of whoever was running, shows in the New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New York area. I kind of worked with, and I started getting a good reputation. So I was getting booked more and more.
That's cool.
So when you first got to Memphis, Phil Hickerson was one of the first people you worked a lot with. You got any good stories, Phil Hickerson matches, anything like that?
He was a really good guy, and it's a shame because, they brought me in, I think they thought they were going to get a more polished guy when I came in, and they quickly realized that I was still pretty green. I was only in the business really a year, and it was decent. I could take good bumps, but I was in no position to, like, I think they would, because they booked me right away with, like I said, with Phil Hickerson, and he was their champ then. And I think they kind of figured out, although Phil was really a good guy, and he worked with me and everything, but yeah, I never really got pushed above the middle of the card in Memphis. But Phil was a really good guy. But that crew, when I got there, so it was on the babyface side, it was Jeff Jarrett, Billy Travis, a young Scott Steiner, my guy I lived with, this guy Sean Baxter, and I'm sure nobody's probably going to remember him, but he did a heavy metal gimmick. Oh, you did? And he teased his hair up like high as could be. He looked like a heavy metal rocker. And the guy was like about 185 pounds, skinny as can be, but he looked like he could have been in a hair band. It looked like he was in an 80s hair band, but it was great. And on then Cactus came in later, and that was a guy that I knew from working the indies up through North Jersey, New York, at Cactus Shack, and I worked with him a bunch of times. So when he came in, they actually tied us together for a little bit, like working an opening match or second match on the card. And we worked with each other a bunch of times, so we had really good matches. And then there was Phil Hickerson, there was Jimmy Golden and Robert Fuller, and of course Downtown Bruno. I mean, that was just a fun, full locker room. Oh, Brickhouse Brown. And then the Rock and Roll RPMs. There wasn't a bad guy in the group. That was such a good locker room.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I don't really I have some other funny stories. Phil was a little older than I was, so it wasn't like we hung out a lot. I hung out more with Brickhouse and with Scott Steiner and all that. But one of my first days in the territory, and they put me with Gary Young, another really good hand, right away I wanted to do spots like up north. He goes, well, what do you want to do? I said, I'll tell you what, I'll throw you outside the ring. I'll come off the top rope like Savage does. I'll double axe handle you on the floor. He's like, whoa, hold on a second. We're opening match. We're not doing that. That's kind of when I learned what my place was there,
Yeah.
So, but we worked, and then so the next, and Tojo Yamamoto was still there. So, I worked TV Saturday, and then Sunday was a spot show. Monday was Memphis. Tuesday was Louisville. So I had a few matches on my belt. We're in Evansville, Indiana on Wednesday. It's probably about my fourth or fifth night in the territory, and I'm on the opening match with Tojo Yamamoto. So we're sitting there as Brickhouse Brown and Billy Travis are standing next to me, and Billy's like kind of working me up. It's like, I'll tell you what, Ray. That's what got to be my nickname over the years too. I got Ray. I go out there and give him hell, son. Going out there, and I'm looking, and the lights are all on still, and the fans are kind of milling around the ring. I go, Billy, I don't think they're ready yet. He goes, oh hell, it's always like that for opening match. Just go on out there. And I kept looking. I'm like, well, they didn't play my music or anything. He goes, listen, I'll tell you what. I've been listening to a lot of The Office. Everybody's talking about you here. So he starts around me and goes, I think you could be like the next star. And he's just filling my head. So listen, get out there and have a good match. He smacks me on the back. I'm like, hell yeah. And I bust through the doors and I jump in the ring. So I'm on there and I'm jumping around. I'm looking. And Evansville had like a small stage area there too. And that's where I saw Frank Burrell. And he was the referee. And he's sitting on the chair on the stage. And I'm wondering, why isn't Frank in the ring yet? So Frank gets on the house mic and says, hey, kid, go back to the locker room. We haven't started the show yet. The whole audience started laughing. I'm like, Now I have to slink back to a locker room. Now, Billy Travis locks the door on me. So now I can't get back in. It was like one of those crash handle doors. I can't get back in the locker room. So I'm banging the door. I'm banging it. And now everyone's laughing because now I'm just like a big dope. I can't even get back in the locker room. I finally let me in, and they are howling on the floor, laugh. And I'm like, you know what? That's good, but I'll get you. So I end up Billy is a guy that he used to not wear socks in his wrestling boots, and he never washed his trunks. And Jeff Jarrett, you'd make fun of him. Billy, your gear stinks. Oh, no, it doesn't, Jeff. No, but he never wore socks. He goes, your boots smell terrible. I don't know how you didn't wear socks in your boots. I mean, my feet would be full of blisters. But anyway, so to get him back, when he wasn't looking, I took a whole tube of toothpaste and I emptied it in both his boots. Right? And he didn't put his boots on until right when he would go out for his match. So I said, all right, well, to his credit, he put his boots on, he worked, he no-sold me, and then left me. I got back, and I kept watching for a reaction. He came back to the locker room, took his boots off, and went and took a shower. I'm like, damn it, no-sold me or whatever. But I still had to get Brickhouse back. So there was a night, the next night, I said, we were in Memphis. Now, we would travel together. Me and Sean actually were roommates in Nashville, and we'd shoot TV on Saturday in Memphis, and then they'd come back Saturday night, and we'd do Nashville. then Sunday was a spot show on Monday. So the two of us rode out there on Monday. And after the show was done, Brick didn't have a ride back. And I still owed Brick, had to get him back for the rib. And I said, yeah, you can ride with us, Brick. So we were riding back, and I drove a pickup truck, but it only had one seat. It was like a one-seat, I think it was a Nissan pickup, and which was nice because it had a cab on it, and I threw all my gear back there. So, when I was living on the road, I, threw my boogie board back there, all my stuff. I had pillows, I had blankets if I needed a place to sleep. But so the three of us were riding back, and in those days, we'd do some drinking on the way back. I think from Memphis back to Nashville, it was about 3 hours. So we're halfway there, and I'm trying to think of it as I-65. I think that might be. If you get about halfway out there, you're in the middle of nowhere. It's like just darkness. So, of course, I had a couple beers on the way back, and Brick's like, I got to pull over, Ray. I got to take a leak. So he goes to get out of my truck, and he goes, oh. And I must have got like a look on my face like, I'm going to get him now, right? He goes, you know what? I'm going to take your partner with you because I know you ain't leaving him here. And because Sean was my boy, my roommate. And so he took me out. He took Sean out for them to go pee, but it didn't matter. As soon as they both stepped out, I jumped on the gas. The door was still open. I flew down the road about another half mile and I turned the car off, my truck off, and waited in the darkness until they both came walking up to me. Now, again, both of them, Brick was laughing. He goes, that's a good one. You got me. And he was laughing. I said, yeah. So I said, sorry, Sean, you caught shrapnel on that one. But he's like, no, that was good. You got him. He goes, I respect it. So yeah, that was a fun crew.
Did you live at the world famous Congress Inn in Nashville?
I did. That was the first place when I came in because now Sean, who was it that left? It was a big guy, and I know him. He did a like a rocker gimmick too. A big guy though, and I think he went to
Max Payne.
I don't know if it was WCW yet or NWA.
Max Payne.
That was his name. Max Payne, yeah. So they were roommates. So as he was going out, Sean didn't have it. So I went to Congress Inn and was like, you can stay with me, until we end up after being there a month though, and we got along good enough. We actually got our own apartment. And I want to say Murfreesboro, but I think it was Murfreesboro Road. It was just a nice little apartment. It was a 2-bedroom place. It was fully furnished, and I think at the time, I think it was like, I don't know, $300 or $400 a month. I mean, fully furnished, 2 bedrooms. I look back, I'm like, oh my God. And it was a nice place. It had a nice pool. It was really nice. I'm like, geez, the prices we paid back. And we split it. So it was $200 a month between the two of us. Yeah. And so, we moved out from the old, what was it, Congress Inn, was it? Yeah. It's funny. Funny how some things kind of slip past your mind. You kind of get rid of. I remember that. I remember that apartment like it was yesterday, but I totally forgot about the Congress Inn. Oh yeah, that was a hole. Yeah.
Well, you brought him up earlier. Tell us about a young Scott Steiner.
He is absolutely nothing from what I saw him later on. Scott was kind of a quiet, nice guy. Really, not that he wasn't a nice guy later on. I didn't really know him once he, turned into, Big Papa Pump. We kind of, our paths went different ways. But he was just a good guy. He drove a fast car. I remember it was like a Trans Am or kind of Corvette. I think I would say Trans Am.
It was a Corvette.
Was it a Corvette? Okay. Yeah, it was a fast car though. I think it was a black Corvette. And he drove fast because I rode with him a couple times. I was like, geez, he really drove fast. I was started getting scared because I used to always be one of those guys that drives 5-10 miles an hour over the speed limit. That was it. I wasn't comfortable driving 105 miles an hour down the interstate. I'm like, hey, Scott, we're going a little fast. He goes, yeah, right, we gotta get there. But always a really good guy. In fact, one time, and he never drove that car that great. It seemed like even going fast, he always was drifting, and it wasn't a big heavy drinker or anything. So it wasn't like, he was drinking and he was swerving. In fact, I don't remember him drinking that much back in the day. But he asked me one time, we ended up picking up a couple girls. So he said, Ray, you drive my car. I'll drive with the other girl or whatever. I don't know why. He couldn't have drove his own car. And instead, I'll go with the other girl. but I figured out why. The steering on that thing was terrible. If you moved it, like you could actually move the steering wheel probably about 2 or 3 inches and it wouldn't do anything. It was like, so if it started like fading off to the right, you had to move it a good like 4 or 5 inches just to kind of get it back in line without going too far where then it goes back the other way. So not only did it drive fast, but the steering was terrible in that thing. I'm glad we made it through there. But yeah, later on, when I worked with ECW in 93 and 94, and they actually brought the Steiners in at one time. And I was like, I haven't seen Scott since 1988. And at that time, I was starting to get a little sour on Paul Lee because he was just telling me things that just never came true. A lot of false promises. I won't even call them lies, but whatever, So I knew Scott was staying in one of the rooms, and I kicked his door open, and automatically he jumped up like he was ready to fight. He goes, "Oh, Ray!" And I go, "Hey, Scott!" I was like, I'm going to give him a big hug, and that's a guy I haven't seen. I said since '88. And I just kind of filled him in a little bit. I was like, he goes, this is the first time I'm with Paul. How is he? I go, listen, I said, listen to everything he says, but only believe about half of it. And he's like, oh, okay. So, yeah, I ran into Scott in ECW, and that's pretty much the last I saw him of that. So, and Scott was still pretty cool. Again, I didn't know him. I'm not saying that Big Papa Pump wasn't cool, but he looked a little more high-strung than I remember.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, what about Jeff Jarrett?
Jeff was a really nice guy, and I think he was only a year older than me, so we were around the same age, and I always remember he never called me Ray or Ray. It was always Ray Odyssey. Hey, Ray Odyssey's here. He got a big kick out of it. In fact, he was the one that told me, you ought to get yourself like a surfboard or something. I go, Jeff, that'd be a pain to carry around. He goes, get one of those small surfboards. So he meant boogie board, and that's when I started carrying a boogie board around. When Jeff said, why don't you, if you're going to do that gimmick, carry around a boogie board. So after I left Memphis, I kind of tweaked my gimmick a little bit more, bought a few more wetsuits, and got the boogie board. So, and Jeff, the only thing with Jeff was, and again, he was a really, really nice guy, and I used to say it to like Brick, and Brick was a guy. Brickhouse was one of the my best friends down there. Like I really could trust him. He was, he was around there. He didn't pull any punches. He'd tell you exactly what he thought, and I'd say, he's pretty cool, isn't he? He goes, yeah, Ray, he is, but just always remember, he's office. Dad owns the company, and grandmom, writes the checks out. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, kind of offhandedly telling me, he's a nice guy. Don't get too close to him, though. Right. So I was like, okay. But yeah, Jeff was a really good guy. Like I said, a little older than me. So he was a good, fun guy to hang in the locker room, too.
That's cool.
What was it like working for Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler overall?
I liked Jerry Jarrett. I saw him more than Lawler. Lawler I didn't see too much. He wasn't on the crew he would work TV. Actually, sometimes he didn't even work TV on Saturday mornings. I see him in Memphis all the time. Memphis on Mondays, he was always a main event. And I even thanked him, because I know he was the one. I said, thanks, Jerry. I know I appreciate that Jerry Jarrett told me that you gave him my picture and vouched for me. And he kind of looked at me almost he didn't really remember. He goes, oh yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah, New Jersey, right? I go, yeah. So yeah, they just must have been looking for anybody to come in at the time because it didn't seem like he was like, oh yeah, I remember seeing you, and yeah, we couldn't wait to get you in here, and just kind of gave me the oh, okay, yeah, welcome to Memphis or whatever. That was it. But Jerry was a good guy, and listen, everyone complained about, I guess, when what the paydays were there, but truthfully, I was working 6 days a week, and I was being paid for doing something I loved. I mean, I get $150 for Memphis, and then $125 for Louisville, and then Evansville was terrible. That was $35. But you always got paid at Evansville on Wednesday night, so you look forward to going there because you get your paycheck. Then Thursday was my night off. Everybody usually works 6 days a week. Then Friday would be a spot show, which was, $50, $75. You worked in Nashville for $100. TV was free, and then Sunday was a spot show. So, I mean, I was bringing home, I would get a paycheck. It was $600. And then in 1988, I mean, that was great. And I was doing what I loved, and I loved it. I never thought the pay was terrible. I wasn't, of course, I wasn't making $1 million or whatever, and I was being paid one of the bottom guys. But, it was It was plenty. He said my rent was $200 a month, so it really, and that was all utilities and everything included. So that was nice. I felt like I was a millionaire.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, so Jerry, Miss Christine, she was Miss Christine, I would see her, that was, I guess, Jeff's grandmother, Christine Jarrett. And she was, I was more afraid to talk to her than Jerry, even though I know that Jerry was the owner. But you saw Miss Christine, and you knew you better been on your best behavior, and you better not have been, first of all, you better not be cussing, you better not be bringing girls around, you better be dressed nice or whatever, because she would tell you if you didn't look right, if you weren't acting right, and she'd, kind of shake her finger at you and tell you how this business is. And, yeah, you didn't want to get caught on Miss Christine's bad side.
That is awesome. We don't hear enough about her, so that's cool.
Yeah, I thank God. Well, she must have been, I see her on Tuesday nights in Louisville. I don't know if she lived close to there, but usually that's the only place I would see her, and that was enough, because I was like, oh no, Miss Christine's aroher. It better be on my best behavior. No jerking around the night,
Now that was her town. She lived in Nashville. That was her town. Her and Jerry started that when when Gulitz and Welch opened that back up in the early 70s. That was her and Jerry. Yeah, that was her baby. Louisville was her baby.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad you guys know your wrestling history better than me. Yeah, that's cool. That was her town then, huh? I didn't know that. I didn't know that until you just said that now.
Yeah. So after you worked about 6 months, why did you leave Memphis? Was it just time to go, or?
Yeah, I was pretty much told it was time to go. I kind of got my walking papers. It was I would have stayed, believe me. Even though I was at the bottom of the card and I was doing jobs, I didn't care. I kept thinking, in fact, at one point, I went to Randy Hales, who was the booker there. And I knew I was getting a push or whatever. I said, Randy, and that was the funny thing is this, remember I brought him up, this guy, Chris the Edge Evans, who was a Monster Factory guy, and me and him were tag teaming a little bit. In fact, he went out and bought a half wetsuit, so we would kind of tag together as kind of like a surfer gimmick, a tag team. And I brought him up. I go, hey, I know I'm not getting pushed much, but what if I brought this guy in? He's got a ton of talent. I said we could be a tag team, and I know the tag division was pretty light. The Rock and Roll RPMs really were the only serious tag team there. Everybody else was thrown together. The Stud Stable would throw a team together, or baby faces, you just throw Steiner and Travis together, or Jarrett and Travis together. There was no real serious tag team. So he goes, if you think he'd come down, sure, we'll have him. And I actually called him. I said, Chris, you're ready to come. This is your break. Come down. And he goes, yeah, he had a job, I think, at the Philadelphia Mint. It was a good shoot job, like a regular job with benefits. He goes, yeah, I don't think I could get time off of my job. So I knew right there that Chris wasn't real serious about making it at that point, whatever. But that's what I was figuring, well, I'll try something else, try. But it ended up that actually me and Sean Baxter both got kind of our walking papers the same week. It's like, okay, guys, we kind of done all we could with you now. But Robert Fuller even came to me. He said, listen, if you want, I could try to get you down in Continental. He said his brother was down there, so I'll put a good word in for you. He said, and then it was Alabama. I said, oh, that'd be great, but I think Continental was starting to cut back on days where they weren't I'm not sure if I talked to Robert, if I talked to Ron. It might have been Robert told me, he goes, you might only be working 3 days a week, and I'm like, oh, if I'm not working that much and I don't really know anybody, I don't have a place down there, you know what, I'll just go home at that point. So it was between that. I was thinking of actually trying to go to World Class for a little bit, but I didn't have it in there either, so it was kind of tough. But yeah, Continental, I had a chance to go there. It just was they couldn't guarantee me a full week, so I was like, let me just go home and see if I can, do anything up north at that point. Because now I'm figuring, well, I got 6 months of Memphis under my belt. Maybe I can get the WWF now, because it taught me fast. I told you I entered a real greenhorn and I left and I knew the business at that point. When you work 6 days a week, every night in front of people, in front of big towns. I mean, the first time I went into Memphis Coliseum, the Mid-South Coliseum, I was like, oh my God, I just remember just standing in the middle of the ring and turning around going, oh man, this is so cool. It's 13,000, 14,000. I'd never been in a venue that big. I'm like, this is it. I made it, but and that's when I went back. And I said, I went back from there. I went back to the Savoldi's, the ICW. and what got welcome back there. They put the strap on me. I think I held that strap for. I think even I looked it up on Wikipedia. They don't even know how long it was because they don't know the date of the title change. I think I held it for like 3 or 4 years. Then they said Tony Rumble was the booker there, and that's when he hooked me up with the Tasmaniac, and that was my guy right there. And me and him tore so many buildings apart, and that's when I got my tryout with the WWF in 1991. Me and Taz went up there on a dark match, and I thought that was my shot right there. And we had a kick-ass match. In fact, I knew a lot of the job guys were there, because back then when they did TV, it wasn't like Raw or SmackDown now. You had job guys, and I knew it was a lot of the Monster Factor guys. It was like Barry Hardy and Dwayne Gill, who ended up being Gilbert, but all the guys I knew from like the indies that would do jobs up there. And they said when me and Taz were in the ring, Dwayne Gill came up to me, a big smile on his face. He goes, "Brother, you got a job here." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "All the boys huddled around the monitor and everyone was popping for your stuff. They were going crazy." In fact, when I walked back to the locker, Road Warrior Animal walked up to me and stopped me. He goes, "That's the way you do it," and kind of like smacked me on the back. And I was like, "Oh man, Road Warrior Animal just gave me props." Pat Patterson and it was Tony Gurria both came up to me, big smiles on their faces, and like, "Great job out there, great job." Which also leads me to my biggest claim of fame, and here it is, fellas. This one, you got an exclusive here on your show. Jimmy, Sheik, Quinton, you were talking to one of the few undefeated stars in the WWF. I beat Taz that night. My record is 1-0. There is not, you can look up and down, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan. You can't go and see anyone undefeated, but you got him talking to you right here on your podcast, an undefeated WWE star.
That is amazing. Yes.
1,000 win percentage, man. 1,000 win percentage. Like,
that is amazing.
Do you realize if I ever got the chance now, even like I said later on in my career, even when I hit my late 30s and 40s, if they ever said, "Hey, would you ever go back and see and work in the WWE?" I said, "Absolutely not." And they're like, "Why?" I go, "Because it would be for a cup of coffee, and I'd have to I'd have to do the job somewhere along the line, and then I'll be just like everyone else. But right now, I am special. I am an undefeated star."
That is awesome.
And that and $1 will get you a cup of coffee tomorrow at breakfast.
That's incredible. Well, I wanted to ask this. When did you start wearing the full wetsuit and the one boot, one shoe gimmick? When did you start doing that?
That was probably right after I left Memphis, because I'm trying to think. In Memphis, I know I have to go back and look at myself. I think I was still wearing 2 boots then. I'm going to have to go back.
That's what I remember.
I wore 2 boots in Memphis. Yeah, I think as soon as I left, remember I told you when Jeff told me about, spicing the gimmick up and getting the boogie board? That's when I said I started, wearing the different wetsuits, the real colorful ones. I got a real nice, like a surfer it was a jacket that I wore, like, a surf jacket that you wear out on the beach, windbreaker. And I started wearing colorful hats. That's when I started changing. I changed the shoe. That's why I put the one checkerboard Van sneaker on, and that was really, I stole that off of Rick Steiner. I saw Steiner wearing 2 different, I think he wore 2 different boots or 2 different things, so I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool, I'm stealing that. So I stole that from Rick Steiner, and I also stole my hometown from the Freebirds, because I always thought Bad Street USA was the coolest place to say, because then I'd say like I was from, San Diego, California, or whatever, and it just didn't have the thing. It didn't have the Surf City, USA. That's cool, just like Bad Street, USA. So I would have to say, of the thing in my career, I stole from Rick Steiner with the 1 boot and 1 shoe, and I stole from the Freebirds with my hometown. But everything else, I've been pretty much an original, which used to make me so pissed off when I would see the Sandman wearing the wetsuit back in the day, or Sandy Beach, and I used to have serious heat. Funny thing is, I ran into Sandy Beach a couple years ago, and I told him, I said, "Man, I said, you don't know how much heat I had." He goes, heat with what? He goes, I didn't even know we had heat. I go, nah, yeah, because you probably, the thing was, Sandy is a big guy too. He was like 6'3", and he was, I remember I used to run into him on the East Coast Independence, and he used to do like a lifeguard gimmick. And he saw me when I started really sprucing it up. And I remember he told me, he goes, yeah, I was thinking to do something with my gimmick too. And he started coming out with almost the exact same wetsuits that I came out with. I was pissed. I said, and then the Sandman started doing it too. And I'm going, and you know what? I had a chip on my shoulder because I'm barely 5'9", okay? When I got my wrestling boots, I actually had the heel made with an extra inch put on it because I'm short, that's it's a shame that now, I mean, it's a different time, where I wouldn't be like, but I grew up in started my career in the 80s when everybody was a monster. And here I come at all 5'9" of me. So Sandman was tall, Sandy was tall. And I was like, you pricks. I mean, I'm trying to get over with this comedy gimmick because I'm a little guy, and this is all I got. And you guys were blessed with size. I said, now you're stealing from me, and that's why I said I was pissed. But yeah, so I mean, I was pissed they stole from me, but now I look back on it, I'm like, oh, you did steal from the Freebirds, and you did steal from Rick Steiner. So I guess what comes around goes around.
We'll be right back with more Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Are you a pro wrestling fan? Well, stop by Captain's Corner, where you can get autographed photos, cards, magazines, and figures from all of your favorite wrestling superstars of the past, present, and future. You'll also be able to participate in live signings in the weeks and months to come. Make sure to stop by Captain's Corner on Facebook and give us a holler. Remember, cheers to the working man.
You're looking for the best promotion available today. Look no farther. The ICW is the best wrestling show available today. If your club or civic organization is looking for a fundraising, money-raising promotion, then call ICW, the hottest promotion available for the 1990s. The ICW features wrestling superstars like former Mr. USA Tony Atlas, The Undertakers, the Dynamic Duo, the Master of the Ninja, Mr. Pogo, Vic Steamboat, Cowboy Bob Orton, and many, many more. If you want action, excitement, and a full house, don't delay. Call or write the ICW today. Write ICW, Post Office Box 6314, Parsippany, New Jersey, 07054. That's ICW, Post Office Box 6314, Parsippany, New Jersey, 07054. Or call 201-887-2698. That's 201-887-2698. The ICW. It's the hottest promotion of the 1990s.
Let me ask you this one. This might be a deep cut here. Were you there when Paulie got fired on his first TV for Savoldi?
I was, but I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't know all the details around it. Paulie actually gave me my first real push there. Well, because I used to take a face first Bret Hart bump, in the corner. Thing is, and I guess I stole that too. So I'm the biggest thief as I'm as big a thief as everybody else too. So anyway, but when Brett would do that bump, he'd hit chest first. Well, of course, I'm a good probably 4 inches shorter than Brett. So when I do it, it looks like it hit me in the neck. So right. I would hit that front turnbuckle and snap my head back really hard, and it got a huge pop. Whenever I would do this, it would get a monster pop anywhere. In fact, usually that was my heat changing spot. Like if we'd use I know I usually for the most part, I was opening match or second match on a card, and I knew it. I worked a lot of comedy, and so it was a basic match. All right, babyface heel match. Tell you what, give me the first 4 minutes of the match. Let me get myself over. Let me get the comedy over. And when we go to the heat spot, I take you in the corner. I said, just give me the reverse, and I do that face first thing, and then let the heel get 4 minutes of heat. I make my comeback, and we go to the finish. So it was an easy 10-minute match, and that's kind of how I always did stuff. And early. Now, when I started working with Taz and they started pushing me further up and up in the card, of course, you're going to have to do other stuff. But I was perfect for opening match. In fact, I didn't even mind working an open match. I'd be done before intermission. I'd be showered. I'd be having a beer in the locker room and ready to leave. If I got paid, I was out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the opening match feels like a semi-main anyway. You know what I mean? On TV if you watch it now. So it's kind of a different kind of thing now, the opening match versus what it used to be, But
Jimmy, and I have to tell you this, this is where the lost art of a house show has gone over the years. Mm-hmm. You had to know your spot, okay, Jimmy? So if I work the opening match, okay, or the second match, do not do 3, triple back salts into the, moonsaults into the crowd and all this other stuff. I would save one high spot. I would do a tope. That would be like one real big high spot and maybe a drop kick off the top. But absolutely, I would never try to steal from the guys. And I learned that in Memphis. You don't steal. And so, you go to these spot shows anymore, these house shows, and you see guys doing, 8 moonsaults in the opening match and kicking out on 3 on 18 finishers in a row and kicking out on 2.5. And these people are drained by the main event, and the main event means nothing anymore. And it's just a lost art of because it's turned into everybody's got to get their shit in. That's what it is. I don't care if I'm the first match. I don't care if I'm the third match. I don't care where I am. I got to get my shit in. I got to get my shit in. I told you, Jimmy, I know about 15 wrestling moves, okay? And again, that includes punch, kick, and chop. So I'm down to about 12 moves, and I bite people on the ass for comedy. So now I'm down to about 11. So, but I just do those 11 moves, and that was it, and I did them well, and you didn't need to do anything much more than that, especially if you're spending most of the time on the bottom of the card. It was fine. So, yeah, it's a shame. You don't see that anymore in these house shows because you were told right away, do not go out to the outside, and don't go on a house mic. I remember, I think it was Jersey All Pro, and I used to work for them every once in a while, and Johnny B was one of the big guys. That was his brother was he was the part of the ECW. What was it? Nova, and he ended up being in WWE. Yeah, the Donnie B, but anyway, every single guy, every match would get on the mic. Not even every guy. It was every guy. The babyface would cut a promo, then the heel would cut a promo, then their manager would cut a promo. It was every single match. I'm like, this is too much, but they did it all the time. And you drain these houses like this. If I'm running the show, nobody out to the floor for the first 2 matches, nobody on that microphone unless told. I mean, and then once you get to past intermission, then start opening up and doing stuff, But it's again, I think it's a lost art on how to run a house show.
Absolutely.
Tell us about your partner, Chris Evans, and your all's matches with the Lords of Darkness for the WWA tag belts.
Mm-hmm. I told you, Chris was an excellent in-ring talent. He was really good. And it was funny, the Lord of Darkness, everybody knows Barry Hardy and Dwayne Gill. In fact, I know that there's a funny story about Vince McMahon, I think, watching a WWE taping or WWF taping at the time. And I think Dwayne and Barry were in about 3 of the first 6 matches. Can somebody get Dwayne and Barry Hardy out of the ring for once and someone else in there? So, yeah, but they were really good. And, and it's when you find a guy that's easy to work, those guys were so easy to work with. Chris was really, I'm telling you, Chris was, he was a real talent in the ring. And it's a shame that, I know he said he wanted to make it and he always did have, dreams of becoming a star. But I guess when push comes to shove sometimes, I guess, bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. He had a good job working at Philadelphia Mint and didn't want to lose it. So, I can understand that a little bit. I was working another job while I was doing wrestling in the 90s. I was driving a truck, and Ted Petty actually had a tour of Japan. It was for an outlaw group. It wasn't New Japan or All Japan. It was one of those other ones. But he says, Ray, we're going to be gone for a month. You want to go? This could be a good opportunity. I was like, yeah. And I talked to my boss. He goes, listen, I wanted to get a leave of absence. He goes, I can't give you a leave of absence for a month and a half, 2 months just to go to Japan. It's different if you're sick or you're caring for somebody. But he goes, I'm not going to tell you can't do it, but I'm just going to tell you that your job won't be here afterwards. He goes, you can do that stuff, because I used to use my vacation time or sick time, if I had matches like ICW when we would get booked. A lot of times we get booked Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. So I was using sick time and calling out. There was times and that was before cell phones. So I'd be on a payphone at 6 o'clock in the morning in Boston, calling out from yeah, I'm not feeling too good today, boss. I don't think I'm coming in. Where are you? It sounds like you're far away. Connection's bad. All right, goodbye. Actually had the owner of my company tell me one time. He goes, Ray, you been wrestling much lately? And I was like, oh no, maybe on the weekends. He goes, funny, I was flipping the channels around the other night. I saw you on there. I go, oh, yeah, that must have been old or whatever. Yeah. The owner of your company starts telling you, hey, wait a minute, you moonlighting on me? But, yeah, so it was a shame that Chris, again, I get what he did. You have to be realistic in this business. And maybe he figured that he wouldn't have made it and he was happy with where he was at. So, I can understand it. I would never, criticize or fault anyone that decided, you know what, I really don't want to take the chance. I did want to take a chance, but again, I told you when I got into my early 30s, I started saying, you know what, I want to make the WWE, and it's getting further and further away. I already knew Cornette. I already knew Jim Ross. They've all seen me, and I'm not getting a job. I actually went up the one time with a bunch of students. Larry sent a bunch of his students up to, I think they had a training facility in Connecticut at one time, and Tom Pritchard was the trainer. And I walked in, and I was warming up with the guys, and Tom went and goes, Ray, what the hell are you doing here? I go, I'm looking for a job, Tom. He goes, you're with a bunch of students. I go, I know, I'm doing everything I can. And he goes, well, next time, either ask somebody. He goes, I can try to put a word in for you. But, I said, well, just let me work out with the students or whatever. Let me work out. Maybe, I'll look good. And someone will say, hey, who's that? If they didn't know who I was at the time. But yeah, Tom Pritchard was and I knew him from, he had a short little, stay in the ICW back with the Savoldis, so I knew him from there. And he said he was training the guys then too. And again, Ray, what are you doing here? So I did everything I could.
All right, so you mentioned him earlier for a split second, but tell us about old Tony Rumble. Because I remember seeing him all the time in the magazines and stuff, and it seemed like he should have got bigger than he was.
Quinton, I absolutely agree with you. And it's really sad. And I really like that. You ever see the movie Bronx Tale? And they talk about wasted talent. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think about Tony Rumble. Not only, and the funny thing was, Tony wasn't really even that good in the ring. I remember he started his career, I think he was like a dungeon master or something, and he was really stiff and he wasn't good. He was a great manager. He was great behind the mic. He was great doing color commentary, and he was editing the shows. He was putting the shows together. Paulie, when he came in, I believe it was 1990, and he took over as the booker. And I don't think I ever got around to that question because, of course, I talked off into a tangent, but I said I never really knew what happened. I know Paulie was trying to bring talent in, and Mario was working on a shoestring budget. So I don't know if Paulie left because he couldn't get, who he wanted in there and do what he wanted, or Mario said, you know what, we're going to go a different way and let him go. So 20 minutes later, I answered that question.
It's okay, bro.
But for Tony Rumble, Tony was he was so good. And I have to say, that's where I got my first push, because he had this little thing he called the Rumble Seat. It was like a Piper's Pit. It was like, whatever. It was like his little segment of his show. Yeah. And he came on as the heel guy, and he'd break the babyface's balls, and he kissed Tony Atlas's ass and all that. But so he brought me in. He called me a midget a bunch of times. We started making fun of me, wiping the zinc oxide off my nose. And I stood up and I smacked him across the face. And he took the best bump ever for me and started smashing the lockers behind us, saying, I'm going to get you. From that point on, whenever Tony Rumble did commentary, whether I was in the ring or not, he just all of a sudden would bring up, something, I can't stand that Ray Odyssey. I can't stand him. He just he's in my head all the time. He would talk about me even, and that's when people started really saying, oh, okay, well, listen, if he keeps talking about it, I'm like, and really, that ICW TV show, if you ever watched it, it was terrible. It was really, really bad. I think that's probably why I looked good, because I guess I was the cream of the shits, I guess. So, I had a little bit of talent. So when you had a little bit of talent, you looked a lot better. The TV was awful. I mean, the production was awful. It was worse. I know that they said that was the charm of ECW. I mean, the ECW looked, but at least ECW's TV looked organized. Ours looked like match, promo, match, promo, match, old match, really old match, promo. There was no fluidity to it. Paulie actually kind of brought that out. He started running angles, because before there was even no angles. And then he started running some angles. Then it was me and Tony was the main angle. So he would have the big guys that were the Undertakers at the time, two big fat guys, and they did that gimmick, like they painted their faces white, and they did like kind of a death thing. In fact, Vince bought their gimmick because they trademarked it. That's another story for another time, and I think we've already talked an hour and 6 minutes. Yeah, but that's another time for air. But anyway, so they started. It was Paulie's idea to start throwing me against all the monsters there, and I beat him. So I guess I was his original like, Spike Dudley or Mikey Whipwreck, whatever you wanted to call it. All of Paulie's ideas kind of started in the ICW, but then Tony took the ball and he ran with it. And again, Tony was the guy. Then he brought the Tasmaniac in, and he threw me and him together. And I remember the one night he goes, "Ray, come here." And we were working at a fair show the one time, and it's funny because you can actually, if you see the TV taping, it's like a big arena. Maybe it looks like for a rodeo or something because there was big bleacher seats. But you could see a Ferris wheel off in the distance. And he goes, "I want you to see this guy." And it was Taz, early Taz. I'd never seen him before. And he was throwing these suplexes and he was dropping guys on their heads and beating the hell out of somebody. He goes, "That's who you're going to be working with the next 6 months." I'm like, "Are you out of your mind? I'm not working with that. I do comedy. What's wrong with you?" And he goes, "No, I'm telling you, you guys are going to be perfect together." And he was right. And like for the longest time, I would say like for 6 months to a year, I mean, I almost didn't wrestle anybody except for Taz. I mean, even when we worked independent matches, I could go up in Rhode Island somewhere on some indie show, drive up there, not even though Taz was on the card. I get there and I see him. I go, "Guess it's me and you again tonight." Is yep. And we just carried that act all up and down the East Coast. And we didn't even have to talk to each other before the matches. We kind of knew each other so good. It was like, we'll get the finish. I'll see you out there. You know, we clicked. And that was from Tony Rumble. Tony Rumble he was really, really good. And it's really sad that he died so early. And he didn't die of the drug overdose like you think a lot of the boys did. Tony had a bad heart. He had a heart condition. Same thing with Ted Petty. Ted never drank. Ted was one beer a night, never did drugs, nothing. It's just they both had bad tickers. And I think Tony was only maybe 40 years old when he died. And it was so sad. Tony was... That one probably, him and Teddy's death probably hit me harder than anybody else in the business because they were just such good guys. And like, you never heard a bad word about either of them.
All right. This, the guy I'm asking about, he wasn't on the notes I made up. I'm going to butcher his name, but, I was talking about how Tony Rumble was in magazines a lot. This other guy from, Savoldi's was in the magazines a lot too, and I'm gonna butcher his name, but you can correct me on how to pronounce it. Eric Sabratia.
Another one of my buddies. Oh, you said it perfect. Yeah, Eric Sabratia. Yeah, it's a very weird spelling. In fact, his first name Eric is even a weird spelling. It's like Erich. And you know what? Remember I told you guys I don't stay in touch with it. He's another guy. He lives up in Boston. He's another guy I chat with online. So I kind of do stay in touch with him too. Yeah, it's funny, Eric. When we first started in ICW, he had the light heavyweight belt for a while, and he was always taller. I think Eric was like around 6'1", 6'2", but he was real lean. He didn't have much of a body on him, so he was maybe 225-ish around that area. So we actually worked a little bit, against each other because he was a heel. But then they threw him with Phil Apollo for a while as a tag team. And then he used to work with Steamboat, too, as a tag team. So he was more of a tag wrestler. So I didn't really wrestle that much against him. Every once in a while, they would throw me in with him. But excellent talent. And again, if you see him now, it doesn't look like the same guy. He looks like a 280-pound muscled biker guy, shaved head now, big, intimidating-looking guy. Yeah, actually, you know what? You probably get when he was working for the NWA. I remember when Tony Rumble was still alive. It was coming towards the end of my career. So it was around 99, 2000 when the NWA was trying to make that comeback with Dennis Carluzzo and I think Brody in Florida. They were trying to do the thing where it still had the NWA name and I think the belt because I actually held the old U.S. Tag belts with the Inferno Kid, which were the real belts that the Midnights and the Rock and Roll Express had. So that was kind of cool. It was like, oh, wow, that's the same belt. And So they were trying to start it up, and I know they had Dan Severn as their champion, but it was Eric Sprache, and I think Knuckles Nelson was his partner, and Tony brought them in, and they were an intimidating group. Those two were really intimidating because at that time, I said, I haven't seen Eric in close to 10 years at that point. I looked at him like, holy shit, what happened to you? I mean, totally big monster guy now, real good guy, great talent in the ring. If you ever watch, I don't know what their names were, like they had a tag name, but you should go back and try to watch some of their stuff. They were really talented, the two of them.
I saw this the other night for the first time. It was listed like the famous pool party. It was you, Eric, and Vic Steamboat. Where was that shot at?
Okay, that's a great story. Okay, well, here's another thing. You know, we remember back in the day, like they used to have stables, you know, but the stables were always in the 80s. They're always heel stables, like between the Freebirds. I think Tommy Rich had one, like the Rat Patrol, or they used to have that. Of course, the Horsemen were the biggest one ever, you know, but there was always stables, but they were always heel stables. So I said, we should make our own stable. I said, and then I came up with the name. It was Steamboat. We all hung out together. Vic Steamboat, myself, and Eric were real good buddies. We rode around together at that time. I said, we'd call ourselves the SOS Express, Steamboat, Odyssey, Sprache. And Tony loved it. Funny thing was, there was only a couple times on TV that it was ever mentioned, like the SOS Express, and one of them was that pool party. So, again, a long way around to your question, but that was supposed to be in sunny California. I remember Bob Dow saying it. Yeah. It really was at Howard Rapp, who was the money man behind the ICW, that was his house. He had a nice big house and a big pool out there. So it was one of the days we had off down there, and Howard said, why don't you bring the boys over? We'll have a nice barbecue. We were in between shows and everything, and we can actually run the TV off there. In fact, that pool party, it killed two birds with one stone because it was a fun show. In fact, I think it was a 3-part show, actually, and I had the first 2 parts of it, and I didn't have the third. So the first 2 parts were me and Steamboat and Sprache, you know, jerking around at the pool and talking to Bob Dow and them showing clips of our matches and stuff and talking about our feuds. I think Steamboat was in a feud with Atlas. I was in a feud with Rumble. And Sprache, I think, with a tag thing or whatever. So, we all had our own, issues. Well, one of the real issues was Vic Steamboat, I think it's called alopecia. I'm not sure. It's the one where you start losing your hair. Does that sound like, I'm trying to think now. I know there's a skin condition, but I think, he was losing clumps of his hair. And, you could see it on TV. All of a sudden he turned, and he was a young guy. He was only a little older than I was. And, I said, oh, my God, Vic. I said, I could see a big bald spot on the monitor. And he goes, I know, I'm losing parts of my hair. So during this, the first couple, it was a 3-part episode, and I wish I don't have the third part. That's it. If anybody on that has an old tape or wherever, and they can put it out on YouTube, I would love to see, because I've never seen the third act, the third week. So we're all hanging out. So, of course, Tony Rumble comes to spoil the party at the end as we're doing a wrap-up. So they bang me and Sprache over the head with that batting helmet, which, by the way, Rumble never knew how to pull that punch with that. He would say, oh, it's only a plastic batting helmet. It's just, a fake, but it hurt like hell when he hit you with that thing. It was a plastic batting helmet across your head. So me and Sprache went into the pool. The Undertakers were keeping us from getting out. Meanwhile, he hits Sprache, and he takes, remember the old Freebird hair cream? Well, he had this cream, and he rubbed it all in Vic's hair, and he goes, there you go. Now your hair is all going to fall out. In fact, I think he even said, I used the famous Freebird hair cream on it. So then the next week on TV, when they would show close-ups, you could see Vic's hair was falling out anyway from, I think alopecia. And so Rumble would go on and on, and see, and I caused that. I put that at the pool party. I put that cream in his hair, so that had another, angled where Steamboat could work off of Rumble, because Rumble, of course, had Atlas as the champion, so another way Steamboat could come after him with another feud. But that's what that whole pool party, the end of that pool party was, hey, let's explain now how Vic's hair is falling out before you start seeing it all the time, So anytime you'd get a close up on Vic's head and you'd see big patches, and Rumble would, of course, doing commentary, go, well, you see that big bald patch? Yeah, who did that? Don't you, Bobby Dow? It was the BBB. He was a character, man, and he had such a great mind for the business.
I was just thinking about that pool party because it was, like I said, the third part, I've looked for it everywhere. I cannot find that third part anywhere. But the first two are on YouTube.
Yeah, Quinton, I actually, when I would go on the road, I had the old VHS that knew, what channels, I could tape it. So I had a whole monster collection I still have it in my, I don't put any stuff in my attic because I'm afraid if it gets too hot. But, in my basement, I've been storing old tapes. And so I have 100 easy of old VHS tapes, and I've gone through a whole bunch. But you start getting tired. You got 100, 150, tapes that have all just the wrestling on it, and I can't find it. I'm like, I can't believe I didn't have this. I had the first two. I have the first two episodes, but I don't ever have that third one. So yeah, if somebody else has it, or somebody else wants to go through hundreds of my tapes, you can have them, and I kind of go through a whole bunch of ICW stuff that I recorded over the years. Because I'll tell you, as bad as that TV was, though, Quinton, it went out everywhere. It was, it was on in Jersey, but it was on all through the Northeast. It was out in the Midwest. It was as far as California. It went overseas, that tape. I used to get fan mail from people in Germany saying they watched me on the ICW. I'm like, man, for bad TV, it went everywhere. I have to give Mario Savoldi and whoever did that so much credit that they could get that TV on all over the place. So it really, like I said, for really a bad-looking TV show and really some of not the best talent, it sure did get me over. I'll tell you, because it got me over in a whole lot of places.
We would get it in Nashville every now and then. We'd get it a couple of weeks at a time through I want to say probably for off and on for maybe about 7 or 8 years. We'd get it. It'd just pop up on one of the smaller stations here in Nashville. So I got to see a little bit of it through the years, just here and there. It was everywhere.
It was, and it was for a show that was shot basically throughout the Northeast, which I could understand. You were on a lot of UHF channels back in the day, or smaller bootleg cable channels. I know it was on Sports Channel America, which was decent back in the 90s, because I think it was the same that ECW used to run on. In Florida, it was it was the Suncoast Network. There was some big networks it was on. I go, how Mario got that show on TV, I am amazed. I mean, it's crazy where it was.
That's awesome.
And really wasn't that good. It really wasn't.
All right, you talked about this guy earlier. So tell us about when you and Chris Candido worked each other for the WWA Junior Heavyweight Belt. Y'all had a little program there. Do you remember any of those matches?
Yeah, it's funny that I can remember things better too, Quinton, when I see them when they're on YouTube, or if I have old. I've taken a lot of my tapes that I transferred to DVD, so I do remember stuff like that. Even seeing some of these, Carluzzo used to have the house shows, and he'd put them out, and I'd get them. So I do remember seeing me and him work a lot, and he was a pleasure to work with. He was so easy. Whatever you wanted to do, whether you wanted to have a serious match with him, if you wanted to have comedy with him, anything was, he was just, and it's a shame. And a guy and I love Chris. He was such a nice guy, and I couldn't stand Tammy. I don't know if anybody could have stood. I mean, she was, and I don't like to talk bad about it. She was just, and listen, you have to have some kind of ego in this business, but hers seemed like a whole lot bigger than everybody else's for a whole lot less. Again, I'll tell you who my favorite wrestler of all time is Surfer Ray Odyssey. So I got a big ego myself too. You know, so of course you want to think of yourself as good and everything like this. Although I knew my faults, I would never say I was greater than I was. I knew my place. But boy, Tammy, and the whole thing with her drinking and driving is just, and it finally cost somebody their life, and I can't respect anybody. I would have rather her be just a pompous ass bitch than really someone that killed someone, because she thought she was better than anyone else. She had about 8 or 9 DUIs, and she continued to drive because I guess she felt the law doesn't apply to her. I saw her. Tommy Fierro brought me back in 2021. He said he finally coaxed me onto a show. I said, Tommy, I'm done. I don't want to take any more bumps. And he goes, Ray, well, here's the thing. We're going to honor you. We're going to give you a lifetime independent award. It was funny. It was you. It was me, King Kahlua, Tommy Cairo, and Sandy Beach, my old nemesis or whatever. He says, we're going to honor all you guys all at the same time. He's like, you know what? And he goes, and you know what? You can work a Royal Rumble match. And my son at the time was 7 years old. Okay. He never saw any of my, he was born in 2013. I had him late in life. So he never saw me live. He never got a chance to see it. And when the opportunity was there, I was like, you know what? I'd go out one time where he could finally see me. Like, my wife caught the end of my career. She saw a couple matches that I had a handful of stuff like around 2008, 2007, where she could finally see it live. But then my son never saw it. So he wanted to come out and he wanted to see, one time. So anyway, I end up taking this booking because it'll give my son a chance to see me. Well, anyway, Tammy was on the show. And I know Tammy for years. In fact, her and Chris came to when I bought my house, when was I buy my house? 1992, 91, 92. They came to my housewarming. It was funny. Him, Taz, Tommy Dreamer. So it was a whole big crew came up down from North Jersey and from New York. But anyway, I knew Tammy for years. And last thing, I talked to Tammy a little bit, and I said, last thing, I was standing talking to her and Devin Storm, Crowbar. And I said, one last thing, Tammy. I said, don't get behind the wheel. And she kind of gave me a dirty look. She goes, oh, no, I don't do that or whatever. That was the last I talked to her. And then I think it was not long after that she got in an accident and she killed that guy. And that's horrible.
It is.
But yeah, anyway, that was the last time I saw her. I guess that's how I got on that tangent on talking about Tommy Fierro's show that, he gave me a nice plaque and I had to work. It was, but just working a Royal Rumble, be nice and easy. It gets you in. I figured bring me in around, I think he had 20 because I don't think he had 30 or whatever. But let's say he had 20 guys. Get me in around 16 and get me out before the 20th guy goes. Well, he comes in, he goes, Ray, you're going to be number 2. I said, 2? I said, dude, I haven't been in the ring for like 13 years. I said, he goes, well, Bull James, I don't know if you guys know him, big, great talent around here. Bull James goes, Bull really wants to work with you. I'm like, why would Bull want to work with me? He's a big strap, and he's like probably 350, big menacing-looking guy. He said he liked you from back in the day. You worked those indies that he used to go to and everything. So I was kind of honored that a guy thought that much to work with me. But I was like, damn, really? You're putting me in at 2? Well, so me and Bull ran a couple spots, and I just told him, I said, let's just do one where you push off on me. And I remember he did the push off, and I took the bump. And I remember fellas thinking, man, I don't remember the ring being that hard, taking bumps in it. I knew, like I said, all old wrestlers know when their bump card is full. I knew right at that point, my bump card is full. Yeah, so I struggled through that, blew up so bad within like about 8 minutes, I could barely get over the top rope. In fact, Kahlua and Sandy Beach had to kind of like two-time me to get me over the top rope because I tried to do a spot with Kahlua because, of course, I trusted him. I've known him for years. I go, all right, so I'm battling, I'm punching. I'm like, okay, duck, Kahlua. I'm going to throw the big haymaker. I'm going over top and backdrop me over the top. Well, I threw the haymaker and he went to the backdrop and I was so blown up I couldn't get over the top rope. And he goes, what happened? I go, I can't get over. I'm blown up. I don't know how I'm going to get out of here. I might have to win this thing. He goes, hold on, I'll go get Sandy. We'll get you out. So they both pulled me over the top rope. I'm like, oh my God. I said, oh, embarrassing. All those years of, I said, and I knew that my career could fit in a thimble. And like you talk about, big wrestling, all these years. So I knew my part in wrestling. I was kind of funny. I was an entertaining guy, and I know we had a nice little career. And that's what I say, a nice little career. But I said, really? And I said, and Kahlua, that's another thing. He goes, why don't we do a spot? Why don't you throw one of the drop kicks? It was one of the best things I ever did in my career. I threw great drop kicks. I don't care how tall you were. You would get hit in the face with my drop kick. I prided myself on a great drop kick. So Khalil goes, come on, let's do it. I go, dude, my timing is, I haven't worked. My timing's going to be off. He finally talked me into it, and we're in the middle of the ring. He's all right, let's do that spot. He said, he shoot you in, reverse me or whatever, I'll come out, drop down. He says, duck something and throw a standing drop kick. Well, so I threw the drop kick, and I got up about as high as his belly, and if he didn't run into me, I might have whiffed altogether. So on the last drop kick of my career, I hit King Kalua in the belly with a drop kick. I went, oh my God, really? So, well, I'm gonna culminate this story with one little thing with it was nice because I got to go out. A bunch of my friends went up there. It was in North Jersey, and I really felt good because I had some real close friends make the drive up to North Jersey on a Friday night, and my family went up, and my son finally got the chance to see it. So after I got done, they were all kind of hanging around in the arena afterwards, and when I came out, they all gave me kind of a standing ovation, and it felt good. And I said to my son, I go, well, how'd you think old Dad did? He goes, Dad, you were great. Everything except that drop kick. And I went, oh, boy. I go, well, if you want an honest answer, ask a 7-year-old, because I got it.
From the mouth of babes, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. He knew it. I knew it. And right away, there was no sugarcoating. You did great, Dad. Everything except that drop kick.
That's awesome. Well, you spoke about this earlier. You said you were staying up too late watching wrestling and it was causing your issues with school, right? Well, this guy was a similar situation for me, having issues because I had to stay up too late when he was in ECW. But earlier on, you got to work him. Tell us about working a young Tommy Dreamer.
Yeah, Tommy was okay, so we've all started, they started, I was already in ICW at the time. I think we just kind of changed to IWCCW, that deal. So then that's when Tony was really taking over the book. I told you that's when he pointed out Taz and said, that's the guy you're going to work with. Well, Taz and Tommy were driving together. They were friends. They both came out of Johnny Rod's gym in Brooklyn. So Taz lived in Brooklyn and Tommy lived up in Yonkers. So they were close enough where they were friends. They had trained together. So when I hooked on with Taz, I said, listen, I'm coming up. We used to, we'd run all through the Northeast, and going up through New England, Boston and up in Maine. I go, we could, all ride together. That'd be cool. So I would drive up and I'd pick Taz up in Brooklyn. And then we'd drive to Yonkers and we'd pick Dreamer up at his house. Now, Dreamer had the best vehicle. Because I told you I only had that one bench seat truck, so 3 of us would be very uncomfortable driving from there all the way to Maine, and making the stops on the way. Tommy had a Bronco, so the 3 of us rode together. Tommy always drove, Taz was always in the front, and I was always kind of sprawled out in the back seat or whatever. So we got to be really good friends riding together all those years. For the few years the 2 of them were in ICW with me, and Tommy was good, but it was funny to watch what he became because he was the ultimate babyface when he broke in. I mean, he had the green, the neon green pants. I think he wore suspenders. I mean, The big cheesy smile, the worst cheesy baby face, where he had to throw, because the name Tommy Dreamer always had to throw in, and if you want to make your dreams come true, you come out and see Tommy Dreamer because I'm making my dreams come true. I'm like, oh my God, this is cheesier than Rocky IV. With that last line, if I could change, you can change, everyone can change. That's why I used to think Tommy was doing promos for Rocky IV. But yeah, and when he went up in ECW, now Paulie loved them always because they were right from the same neck of the woods anyway. So he was going to get pushed no matter what. Even when he was getting booed in ECW, Paulie was still pushing him, but he came up with the idea of, when he got caned in ECW and be a tough guy and kind of drop all that nonsense with the total baby face and just turned into kind of a hard ass. And the people in Philly bought it. And that's why I didn't get over in ECW because I still worked like it was 1988. I didn't care. I was doing babyface promos. I was doing mostly goofy, because that surfer character was goofy, and then people didn't want to see that. They hated me. I mean, they would clap, they would applaud, like if I did a good move, but then if I did anything like went to the crowd like looking for some kind of applause, something, then I get booed again. And so for him, and Paulie told me. Actually, it was another thing. Ted Petty set up a meeting with Paulie, and because Ted was really disappointed. He's like, you should be getting over here. He'd been over all the place. Ted looking out for me all those years. So I had a meeting with Paulie. Paulie's idea was, after the match, you're going to take the wetsuit off, you're going to throw it on the ground and cut a promo and say, you know what, I'm not this stupid surfer character anymore. I'm hardcore. Well, at that time, I was still getting booked all over the place. I was still getting bussed with ICW. I was over on TV. I was getting bookings all over the place. And ECW was not running a lot at that time. They were running maybe 3 or 4 shows a month. So it wasn't much. I'm thinking, wait a minute, you want me to change my gimmick for, 5 shows a month or 6 shows a month when I'm getting booked, 14, 15 times a month on indies and stuff like that? I go, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And then I think I even cussed him out. I go, you, Paul, I ain't doing your bullshit or whatever. And Teddy, I just remember putting his hands in his face, just like, oh, Ray, I'm setting this meeting up for you. But Tommy kind of did the same thing. He just said, hell with this baby face thing, and he got over. So maybe if I would have done it, I could have gotten over, but I really didn't. So I was saying, Quinton, and I know a lot of people, they love ECW, and it was a good product, and it was a fun show to watch, but I really wasn't into taking 5 chair shots a night. I really wasn't. I didn't really want to bleed all over the place. I didn't do my comedy. I was still trying to get into WWF, because comedy guys have always made it there. You've always had your Bushwhackers, your Santella Marinos. You have these comedy guys that make it, and I'm fine being the comedy guy at the bottom or the middle of the card. That's fine. I had no aspirations of being, the main eventer or holding the world title, but I wanted to make a good living and be on the card. So, yeah, could I have done the Tommy Dreamer? I think I could have, but I really, really didn't want to go there. But you know what? Tommy made it work, and I'm seeing he's still at it, and he's still doing it, and God bless him. You want to keep taking bumps at your age. God bless you if you can do it.
Yeah, seriously. Also, during this run, you worked Cactus Jack again. Was it different working him than when you did in Memphis?
Yeah, because Memphis was, I guess you could say, Southern style wrestling. I remember when Cactus got there, and me and him, we tore up some buildings up in the Northeast on the independent shows up there. And I remember we were working the first show. We were the first match on a card at Mid-South Coliseum, his first weekend. And I said, what do you want to do? And he goes, hey, let's go outside the ring. I'm going to drop the elbow from there. And I go, no, dude. And I knew right away because I was kind of already told, I said, I don't know if they want us to do that in the first match, Cactus. He goes, what are they going to do? Come out and fire us on the spot? I'm like, all right, so we did all those spots, and he looked great, and he took a ton of shit. When he came back to the locker room, they reamed him an asshole, and guess what? Then he moved up the card the very next day, and then he kept moving up because they're like, man, this guy's good. So maybe, you got to show some. I guess there's a fine line between pissing the office off because you ignored what they said and making the office happy because, wow, he was really damn good at what he just did, So he did what he wanted to do that I said, well, I'm going to go by what they said because I'm scared and I like my job and I like getting paid every week and I didn't want to get fired on the spot. But Cactus was, you know what? He was great. Mick Foley turned it into a great career. I mean, one all-timer. And it's funny, I go back sometimes and I watch, there was a show, I worked against Cactus in ICW, and I had the light heavyweight belt then, and he might have been debuting, or he wasn't there that long. And we had a match, and I always remember when I did the job for him and he pinned me, they were yelling, whoa, what an upset this week. Oh, Cactus Jack has upset Ray Odyssey here on ICW TV. And I looked back, and I'm like, one of the biggest stars of all time, and they're calling an upset because he beat me, with a schoolboy and hooked the wetsuit. So it is kind of fun looking back on the moments and going, wow, that's pretty neat. Yeah, Cactus Jack was an upset over top of me that day.
Yeah.
Do you remember the match you had with Rick Martel in 1994?
Quinton, I remember working with him, but I'm going to be truthful with you because I don't remember seeing it. It's one of the matches I haven't seen. Maybe I'll have to go on a deep dive on YouTube or something like that. I can't give you any details because I don't remember. I remember I worked with it, and I remember I was like, cool, I'm working with, ex-AWA champion Rick Martel and a big WWF star and all that, and it was cool. And I remember he was easy, and it was a pleasure working with him. I don't ever remember anything bad about it, but I couldn't tell you what happened in the match, what the finish was, if there are any high spots or anything. So it's funny. Every once in a while, I'll do a search on YouTube and I'll find even a house show. My name will pop up and I'll sit there and I'll watch it because I don't remember the match or even a TV match. I don't remember it happening. So for me, it's like brand new. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I mean, did I win this one? Did I do this? I don't remember any of it. Was this good? Was it the shits? Yeah. So it is fun to do the search every once in a while. I'll have to look for that one because I do remember working with him, but I don't remember anything about the match show except that he was fine to work with, and he was one of the guys that said wow, an ex-world champion I worked with. I still remember, and at least the Hercules Ayala was on YouTube, so I could go back. In fact, I was using. It was kind of my real name. My last name is Samalonis. That's why I had to change it. Okay. So, but they called me Ray Samaloni in Puerto Rico. And so if you look that up on YouTube, you'll see me against Hercules Ayala in there. And I didn't do the surfer gimmick at all then. I just was in red trunks and boots and knee pads. So you'll see a very different skinny Ray Samaloni back then. So those were the matches I can remember, but I remember them so much easier when I get to see them, on tape or video or whatever over the years. So yeah, it's a shame. Yeah. I wish my memory's good on certain stories, but matches, they kind of run all together on ones that I don't have a physical video of them.
That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Ray, we could talk to you all day, brother. We could ask a million questions. So how about down the line, we get you back on for a part 2? Would that be okay?
If you guys if you'd like to hear from Ray Odyssey, and I hate talking to myself in third person, but it's just funny to say it that way because it's still, I just wonder if people, most people are respectful. If they don't know who I was or kind of remember me, they'll do a search before they give the old, who the hell was that guy you talked to? I never even heard of him, So if you think there's interest, I'd be more than happy to talk to you again.
All right, Ray. That's awesome. We know there is, so that's awesome. One more time, Captain's Corner Hidden Treasures virtual signing, August 27th on Facebook. Don't miss out with Captain's Corner and our buddy Ray Odyssey. Sheik, you got one more question? Hit him with it.
All right, Ray, this is going to be a tough question. I know you've got so many great matches in your time and so many great people you've worked with, but if you have to look back at your career and say, that was my favorite match I was ever a part of, what would that match be?
I think it would have to be the night that Taz beat me for the light heavyweight championship at IWCCW. It just fell perfect. The feud kind of ended right at that spot. At that point, it was kind of I hate to say the end of the story because it just sounds so cliche and so much like that's a fan thing to say because it's never the end of the story. And I hate it when people said Cody Rhodes won the belt and, finished the story. Guess what? Until Cody Rhodes retires, the story is still ongoing. Right. Okay. Yeah. So, but it was nice because we had a nice feud up into that point. And right after he won the belt, he went on to another program. I think Rumble jumped me with something else. So I moved on to somewhere else. Now, we did get back together where Taz came back to ICW and smashed me in the face with an ash can, which is a great looking bump too. You could probably find that one on YouTube too. But the night, and it's always funny because most fans think oh, it's the night you won this big match. Anybody in the business could tell you the winning and losing means absolutely nothing. You know what your best match is. And in fact, I really wish, here's one other thing. I'd say that's my best match. The best match that I've never seen that I think is the dark match that Taz and I had in the WWF tryout. It was, and the sad thing is I know a lot of them have tape when they have a dark match, they still have the cameras rolling. Problem was we were during a tape change. I think they were running 2 different shows at that time. It was WWE or WWF. They had it Superstars or something like that, and then they'd have another one. They were like the kind of smaller shows on Saturday. So it was in between the tape change. So there was nothing rolling, although Taz told me he has a copy of it. Now, I don't know if it's a hard cam that was still left running or if it was like, just a regular camera, a handheld that kept running. But Taz told me he saw it. He said it was great. He said the only problem was as soon as the pin went, both me and him both shot out of the ring. Like, I didn't get a chance to stand there and hold my hand up. I just thought it was a better ending because the heat came. I did like kind of a sunset roll up in the corner. I got him 1, 2, 3 and snuck out of the ring real fast. I just thought that was more professional, and then, he said, yeah, you can see it. It's like, here's your winner, Ray Odyssey, and nobody's in the ring. I was like, oh yeah. But so he saw it and he told me years ago, he goes, I'll get you a copy of it. But it just would never happened. And he told me, he goes, yeah, I'm having a hard time finding it because, of course, it's not Taz's highlight of his career. I mean, it's my highlight, so Taz has had so many different highlights. I'm sure that tape got mixed in the middle of somewhere of all of Taz's highlights of his career because he's had a great career. It's over the years. But I would say, yeah, if it was on TV when I lost the belt there, we had, like I said, a phenomenal match where Animal came to me and said, that's how you do it, and then all the guys thought it was the greatest thing. I thought I was going to get hired that day. The only other match that I wouldn't say it was a match. I'd say the greatest guy I've ever been in the ring with is Chris Benoit. But I'm going to make this short and sweet. Chris Benoit murdered his wife and kids, and I'm not going to gush over a guy that did something like that. So I would say the most talented guy I've ever been in the ring with was him, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Can respect that totally.
Understandable.
Yeah, but not to end that on a bad note. Let's end it on the Taz thing. That Taz thing was great. I took Rubble's helmet to the head, and then and got right after a ref bump. So the ref was coming around, Tommy Savoldi, and did the real slow 1, 2, 3 count with me trying to kick out at the end, and losing the belt. So that was good. But I'll tell you what, again, that helmet hurt like hell. Rumble did not pull a punch with that helmet.
Yeah.
But it looked good for TV. It looks great for TV.
That's awesome. Ray, this has been incredible, brother. Guys, don't forget next Thursday on the Captain's Corner Facebook, you can get your autograph from the man himself, Surfer Ray Odyssey. Ray, this has been awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it, sir.
Ginny, Sheik, and Quinton, just always remember, give me back my pro wrestling. Later, dude. I'm out.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, sir, buddy.
Hey,
Take
brother.
care. All right, that was the one and only Surfer Ray Odyssey. We'll be right back to wrap things up on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling after these messages.
Hey, my name is Tammy Reynolds. I am the wife of Forsaken Rick Reynolds, that super cool guy that everybody knows and loves. And I represent West Side Sauces. I make sauces, I bottle them, I seal them, I sell them. I have a hot honey sauce, I have a sweet sauce, I have a hot sauce, I have a white sauce that's so yummy, you can use it on everything. They are absolutely amazing, and I'm so proud of them. We make them from scratch. So go on our website, westsidesauces.com, check out our products, read about our story, and go online and order you some of these yummy sauces. And Rick actually uses all of the sauces because he is a die-hard smoker and griller, and so he likes really good sauces and rubs, and I make them, so how convenient is that for him? Go on our website, westsidesauces.com, order you some samples, and I think you'll thoroughly enjoy them. Thank you, guys. Be blessed.
All All right, guys, we are back, and man, oh man, dude, Surfer Ray Odyssey put in some time with us, guys. That was like an hour and 45-minute conversation we had, and we went all through his history and still didn't get everything. So hopefully we'll get you back on down the line, Ray. What a great conversation. Ray is really cool. Like I said, did not know him before this conversation, but so glad we do now. Thank you, Ray. You're the man, and you guys definitely got to check out the Captain's Corner Hidden Treasures virtual signing next Thursday, August 27th on Facebook. Get an autograph, get a picture, whatever. Get a chance to ask a question. Nick's the man, and so is Ray. Y'all have a good time with that. I know it's going to do awesome, and I can't wait to watch it as well. So like I said, August 27th on the Captain's Corner Facebook. Links in the description of the show. Y'all go check it out. All right, y'all. Had some sad news happen recently in the Middle Tennessee wrestling scene. If you guys could say a prayer for a friend of the show, Lightning Bolt Kid, Billy Collins, and his family. They tragically lost their 15-year-old son, Jeremiah Collins. It's absolutely tragic. They have a couple links out there. I shared one of them where you can donate to them, to expenses. Guys, nobody ever plans to lose their son. It's absolutely against everything that nature plans, and it's absolutely tragic. And if y'all could at least keep him in your prayers during this horrible time. And Billy, man, we're praying for you, brother. If y'all need anything, let us know. And continue praying for our buddy Ben and Q's wife Dana and just everyone, man. We all need the prayers, and thank you so much. All right, guys, next episode we've got coming up is This Month in Wrestling History with Quinton Quarisma, episode 14, and he'll be covering August. What else, right? So we can't wait for that. But of course, if you want to find out all the news that is the news as fast as humanly possible, go to @GMBMPW on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X. Guys, thank you all for liking, sharing, following, all that, subscribing, and so much else. But most importantly, we just appreciate you for listening. So, for the one and only Surfer Ray Odyssey, the Plastic Sheik Jared Street, our territory wrestling guru Quinton Quarisma, and myself, this has been Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, and we'll see y'all next time.
Don't forget.
Let's go to the other dressing room. Tony Rumble and his Rumble seat.
Yo, hey, this week, right here on the Rumble seat, strap it in tight, Daddy, because my guest, hey, we don't see eye to eye on a couple of different reasons. Maybe because he's like a midget. He got my Undertakers involved in a feud that I just ain't too sure about. My guest this week from Surf City, USA, Ray the Surfer Odyssey. Hey, Odyssey, first of all, I never liked you. You big surfer, and you've been hitting your head on too many corals in my book. Sit down, because I'm too tall to talk to you. Sit down.
Wait a second.
Sit down,
Before I
punk.
sit down, I want to get something straight. There's been a lot of major league bogus stuff going on here with them Undertakers, you call them? I don't call them Undertakers. I call them overeaters.
Sit down so the people can see you. You're ruining the program. What are you trying to ruin my ratings, you punk? You're lucky I got you on here. You belong on some goof show, not in the top-rated show in the world. You show respect. You understand? Respect. Because I
show respect where respect is due.
Hey, what? Look at, hey, like I said, a snot-nosed punk. A snot-nosed punk. I said you're a snot-nosed punk.
Maybe you ought to do your talking.
Sit down, kid. Hey, Odyssey! Odyssey, you want me? Next week! Hey, I'll fight you, you little punk! Hey, Odyssey, hey, cut!
With a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life.
We'll see you next week. And until then, so long for now.
This has been a James Rock Street production.